Firebird is a stallion.
Brando.
You disgust me.
Elizabeth Taylor.
Have you ever been collared and dragged out into the street and thrashed by a naked woman?
Marlon Brando.
I swear I'll kill you!
Reflections in a Golden Eye. A story that shows you what people do to each other in the name of love. Reflections in a Golden Eye stars the Elizabeth Taylor who showed the world what a woman really is. Reflections in a Golden Eye stars the Marlon Brando who has shown you how powerful and dynamic a great actor can be. Reflections in a Golden Eye, directed by John Huston, who has directed some of the finest motion pictures of our time. Taylor, Brando. Now, a love story may never mean the same thing to you again.
Lousy bastard! Beating my horse!
The Major. He knew what his wife needed, and it wasn't him.
I think you'd better go up to your wife's room. She's not alone. My husband is with her.
The Major was everybody's idea of how tough and cool a military man should be. Until those few seconds when he thought he was going to die. When he saw what he was, what he wanted, and what he'd have to do to get it. Leonora, the kind of woman every man can have. Except her husband.
Leonora isn't only deceiving her husband. She is deceiving you, too, with an enlisted man.
Williams, the enlisted man, who knows all about one kind of wild animal. Now he will discover another kind. Langdon, the colonel, who had the roughest job in the army, taking care of the Major's wife.
Not here now.
Allison, the colonel's wife. She does not desire. She does not lust. She watches those who do. These are the people who see what they love and what they hate in Reflections in a Golden Eye. This is what happens to people who cannot help the things they feel or the things they do to each other. These are the stars who have never done what they do now in Reflections in a Golden Eye. Suggested for mature audiences. Leave the children home.
Hello, welcome to Movie Numbers. My name is Bob Sham.
I'm Angela.
This sounds your Maybe Dogs, and we are in the final stretch of our second annual Movies Are Gay, in which we discuss LGBTQ movies about bi adjacent classic movie subtext. And what a wild ride this month has been. Next month, we're going into our new theme for July, which is almost very opposite, but maybe no less gay. We're talking about war movies, movies centered around war. It's called Glory and Propaganda, or Propaganda and Glory. I can't remember what I called it. But yeah, we're talking about movies that take place during wartime. War movies.
Just in time for Independence Day.
And it was a struggle picking them out because, you know, there's some that are very typical, right? But I didn't want to get too typical. But I wanted to follow some battles. There's a lot of World War II stuff out there. So we got a whole week devoted to that. But I wanted to be a little different as well. We'll get to that. Just letting you know, here in our final week of Movies Are Gay, that movies stay gay as we talk about movies during wartime. All these men and units packed together. It might be their last night on Earth. You know what they're doing before the big battle. They're kissing.
There's definitely romanticism about all of the men living together next to each other within this film.
I did not pick Spartacus, but maybe next time. But the movie we're talking about today is a late era film by John Huston. Well, no, late era would be like 80s. This is a guy who made probably his prime movies around the Hays Code era. And now that we're out of the Hays Code around 1967, he gets to show butts in this movie.
And he shows them.
And we're talking about the film Reflections in a Golden Eye from 1967, directed by John Huston, written by Chapman Mortimer Gladys Hill, adapted from the novel by Carson McCullers, who passed away not long before this movie came out. And it stars MILF-era Elizabeth Taylor, DILF-era Marlon Brando, Brian Keith, Robert Forster, Julie Harris, and the introduction and final appearance of Zorro David in a film.
It was also the introduction of our horseman. You just said his name.
Robert
Forster. Thank you.
Yeah, the film is like, and introducing Robert Forster.
Who's a grown-ass man.
Does he say more than 5 words in this whole movie? We see him so much. He doesn't sleep.
Maybe a total of 5 words. He speaks when spoken to only if words are necessary.
Now, the version we watched, it had this paragraph that showed at the beginning of the DVD we got.
Yes.
That talks about how in the original version of the theatrical release version in the first week, John Huston put this gold filter all over the thing. And movie-going audiences were like, why does it look like the film's been soaked in pee-pee? And so the studio responded. It was originally shot in full color and in Technicolor and in edit.
And he manipulated it.
After the fact.
Yes.
He put a golden filter all over it. Now, I don't know what you think about it. We'll get into it. I feel like I'm a bit with the movie-going audience after sitting through it. But I gotta say, it's all based around the fact that I was explained this. And if the DVD didn't explain it, I probably would have read about it a little bit later. I feel like it's a little on the nose. I do. And I do think utilizing the filter in certain points would have worked very well. Like, for example, near the end, when Marlon Brando's characters walk through the house in a thunderstorm and you see the light popping off and everything is like real golden. You see that golden flashes. I feel like if John Huston would have used the filter in certain moments of like peak repression, peak tension, and in that last scene, it actually looked really beautiful. But then there's other times where all these outdoor scenes, and then there's that scene where Anacleto explains the reflections of the golden eye in the peacock painting.
A sort of ghastly green with one immense golden eye. And in it, these reflections of something tiny and
grotesque.
Exactly.
Where he's describing all the colors, but you don't see all the colors. And because everything is golden, you're not even engaged with the golden aspect of the peacock's eye, as he explains. I think John Huston should have been a little more selective on the filter in certain moments.
I was glad we were seeing the version that the director wanted to put into the world.
You know, you're right. Either way, this is what he wanted. This is what we'll watch.
I appreciated it. I felt like I understood what he was going for. I understand your points, but we watched a theatrical trailer afterwards that was in full Technicolor, and I did not like that. I thought that adding this golden tone over the whole movie really gave it this southern, hot, dirty filter that I was fine even when Anacleto is talking about the green and the peacock, because these people are also repressed. They can't see vibrant color. One of the only times, I'm serious, like, so they want that.
Are we repressed?
No, but I think it's trying to get you in this mindset. Marlon Brando's character is very depressed and suppressed.
Thank goodness for captions. We wouldn't understand a word this man was saying.
This is very true. I do. He also, especially when he gives lectures, because he's just talking and he's teaching and there's no action happening except he's standing there. I had trouble understanding what he was saying while I was reading it.
So you don't mind the PP filter?
I don't mind it because I think it gives...
We're calling it the PP filter.
That's fine. I think the PP filter gives the movie a tone that I understand. It feels like a Tennessee Williams play.
He was hot at that time. Liz Taylor, I think she did Cat on a Hot Tin Roof not long before this, right? I think these Southern Gothic kind of...
Well, and Brando... Yeah. Streetcar Named Desire.
Right. And then, so I think that's just hot for a long time in films, like the Southern way, come on down, have yourself some Some sweet tea.
There's a part where Liz Taylor is talking about all the food at her party. I'm going to have 2 Virginia baked hams
who's eating
and
this
a
shit?
turkey and fried chicken and cold cut ham. And why do you need 2 Virginia baked hams and cold cut ham? Everything she said was meat or bread.
This is a movie
Biscuits.
Biscuits. This is a movie where everyone kind of sucks,
So much whiskey.
right? Everyone kind of sucks except my man Anacleto.
Robert Forster does not suck. I don't think.
I think he was trying.
We can talk about that too.
He's trying to suck. He's weird. He's breaking into people's houses and smelling their undergarments. Let's talk about the setting. We've gone through the filter. I think it's a little heavy-handed and would have worked in moments. You're fine with it. It's nice to know that we don't agree on some things.
We don't.
But what is the setting here?
So
It's in
we
the deep
are.
South.
We're in the deep south. I believe we are on some sort of military property, like a base or so. It's a fort. It's a fort.
It's a forward.
Because they talk at the beginning. There's a quote at the top that says,
Who forwarded?
"At such and such fort years ago there was a murder." To which I thought, there's probably a lot of murders at a lot of forts.
Yeah.
But
where
this meant not wartime.
all those
This meant
lynchings.
someone's gonna murder someone in this
I
fort.
did kind of like how that came back because I totally forgot. And I was like,
Yeah.
okay, there's a murder.
Me too.
here.
And they showed it again at the end, and I was like, oh, that was the murder.
Yeah, right.
So where we are, these officers have houses where they live with their wives, and we've got Marlon Brando and Liz Taylor are married, and then we've got Brian Keith, and he's married to this little lady, and she has Anacleto, who is her companion.
He's a gay Filipino, probably the most openly who he is out of the whole movie.
Definitely. And
He's a gay Asian in the Deep South. There's no one like him for hundreds of miles.
they talk about that too. But the other thing we need to realize is that they live here. There's also military barracks there. Tons of young men live here also.
It's a bit of a like an academy as well. It's
Yes,
like a
because there's
combination of-
lectures being had.
Right, there's classrooms.
It probably is sort of like a school, and these men do jobs as well. So Robert Forster's character, whose name I cannot
Williams,
remember,
Private
Williams, works in the stables and has for years. They make a comment at one point where Marlon Brando says that that's the boy that spilled coffee on my lap, and Liz Taylor says that was 2 years ago. You cannot let things go. She's repressed in this situation because she's very sexual. She wants to have parties. She's very outgoing and very in color. The one time we get color is when they go to
the Reds.
well, they go to a match. Yes, the Reds. She has Reds that she wears. But they go to a boxing match, and everyone else is in their, tan military suits. And even the other women in that scene are in neutral colors. And she is wearing a bright red dress with her boobs out. She always is having her boobs out. She flaunts her sexuality in front of her husband because he hates it.
I'll kill you! I swear I'll kill you! Don't do it! I will kill you!
Son, have you ever been collared and dragged out into the street and thrashed by a naked woman?
They do not have sex. She's having an affair with their next door neighbor.
Played by Brian Keith, Lieutenant Colonel Morris Langdon.
His wife, a couple of months ago, cut her nipples off with sewing shears. And all the doctors have looked at her and said that she was totally fine. There's nothing really wrong with her. But she's been depressed since their child died 3 years ago. We don't know how old the child was. Anacleto, though, has been with her since before the child was born. He was the one that she held on to while she was giving birth.
Is Anacleto getting paid?
I think that Anacleto probably does get paid. I think that he also lives there, obviously. He spends all of his time with her. He loves her.
Yeah, they're very intertwined.
They even talk about how maybe they'll run away and get a prawn boat, or they'll live in a hotel. They have dreams together, her and Anacleto. They are best friends.
Anacleto is probably my favorite character here.
I do really like him also. He's pure joy. There is also a part where, for this party, Liz Taylor comes over and asks the woman, can Anacleto serve alcohol at the party? And she says, oh, yes, I'm sure he wouldn't mind doing that. And he storms out of the room.
He doesn't like her.
He is such a little queen. He does not like Liz Taylor because he knows, everyone knows that Liz Taylor is fucking the woman's husband.
Even Brando's character.
But also, Brando doesn't care.
He doesn't care.
I think you'd better go to your wife's room. She's not alone. My husband is with her.
Alison, you shouldn't be wandering around like this. I'll take you home.
You don't mean to sit there and tell me you know this and do nothing about it?
So they go out riding, and they'll go out riding or driving, and that's when they have sex. And we actually see her having a relationship with him before we ever even meet her husband. Mm-hmm. So that is definitely where she is. And I think they do care about each other, but it's just the circumstance they're in. He has a wife that is not emotionally available to him, and she has a husband that is not emotionally available to her. But they are all friends. And I do believe her when she says she cares about his wife. Mm-hmm. But I think she cares about his wife as much as she cares about anyone, which I don't think is a whole hell of a lot, because she really cares most about herself.
This private, played by Robert Forster, he's always sneaking around. He does not seem to sleep at night.
Right.
And he's really good with horses. They go out on a ride. They talk Marlon Brando's character, Penderton, out to go riding with him. And they're out in the forest. In that scene, after they take off, Williams asks to go on a ride. And they go and they see him riding in a clearing, and he's buck-ass naked.
And she says,
Well, that's Private Williams, isn't it?
It certainly is.
Bareback to bare ass.
It's outrageous. You go on ahead, I'll tend to it.
Oh, what sport is fun?
barebacked, bare-assed.
Bareback to bare-assed. We posited that he had to have known they were riding out there somewhere.
Oh, yeah.
And we're positing that maybe he wanted to be seen.
Keith's character's name?
Colonel Langdon.
Langdon. So he kind of chuckles about it. Liz Taylor, Leonora, which I love that name. She is delighted by it. And Marlon Brando is fucking wants to go report him right now. And she's like, don't spoil his fun. Like, let him do this.
If Brando came, he would be ejaculating for like 20 straight minutes.
Obviously, Brando, I think there's a couple things going on. He's attracted to this man. He hates that he's attracted to this man. He's also in charge, so he feels as though he needs to discipline him for doing something that's like outside of protocol. But there is a voyeuristic exhibitionism to Williams that I think makes Marlon Brando
jealous.
Yeah, he's
free.
How free he is, because we see him multiple times riding the horse naked, sunning himself. There's this place he goes to where it's these rocks, and he's just laying on his stomach, bare ass naked, just in the sun. It actually looks so relaxing and beautiful.
If you ain't felt horsehair on your balls, have you truly rode? Amen. At one point, Private Williams walks in on Penderton. Penderton likes to go to this little area where he looks, and he has a spoon that he stole from a party from a guy he has a crush on.
Oh yeah, Williams watches their house.
All the
time. So he's watching him through the window.
And Penderton has a spoon that he took from this party that was done by this officer that he likes. And in his shame and his repression, he recommends the officer to just kind of quit the army, like later in the movie. It's revealed to Williams that he is kind of gay because I thought this was kind of ridiculous and funny. Brando's looking at a statue of David, I guess. Mm-hmm. And he's like, oh yeah, like a fucking this is like Amish people.
Yeah.
Getting horny looking at ankles. This is so repressed. You're going to look at the statue of David of all things and be like, oh, I thought that was really funny as shit.
I thought it was really sad. Here's why. And I also have a thought about the other guy.
But it was also funny.
They had set this up by making fun of this other officer, talking about how, so the wife, the genteel wife who's a little mentally unstable, she's good friends with him and she loves him. And she talks about him very fondly. Liz Taylor's kind of making fun of him. You get just through subtext that he's gay and people think he's a little weird and whatever. So that's established. And then she talks about how someone stole a spoon from his house and no one knows where that spoon is. And Liz Taylor's like, well, I sure didn't steal it. And why would you even think she did? But she's the bad girl. So I think she's always ready for people to think she did something to someone. So yeah, we go to this scene. He's staring at this photo of David. He has this spoon.
He's not a
the
size
boy's
queen,
watching
obviously.
him. No. But it's the saddest thing because you get that
It's so sad it's funny.
he wouldn't have a photo of an actual man because he can't explain that. But he can explain a picture of a statue. It's art. It's art. I think what happens with that officer later, we do actually meet him. We don't see him that often, but he does talk about how he's going to leave because he had a meeting with Marlon Brando, and Marlon Brando told him, I don't really think this is working out for you. I don't think you're doing that great of a job. You're just okay.
You're not going to have a future.
Right. He basically says enough to him to force him to leave. He doesn't tell him to leave, but the guy says, well, if that's how you feel about it, then I'm just going to go. He's going to say goodbye to people. And I think what happened is, for years, Marlon Brando's been in love with this other queer officer. But this young man, Private Williams, has now got his eye. So he doesn't have any more use for that officer. So he's dismissing him.
Private Williams, at this point, has been sneaking into the house while Elizabeth Taylor's character is sleeping, and she sleeps very deeply.
Very deeply.
And he's smelling her lingerie.
He also looks at items on her vanity. He stares at her sleeping.
Is he into her, or does he want to be her? I think he does kind of like her because she's so into horses like he is.
And she likes him because that's their connection.
Does he?
He doesn't have any vices other that we know of because he tells her he doesn't drink. I don't believe we see him smoke, although a lot of people are in this movie. But his one thing seems to be
breaking into houses and sniffing lingerie.
Yes. He starts out as a peeping Tom. He's just staring at them through the windows. We don't know how long this has been going on. We see it start after he's asked to come do a chore for them one day and he has an interaction with her. And it seems to be the beginning of this. But yeah, he very quickly learns. He goes every single night and goes to her room and sits there. I think there's part of him that wants to be with both of them. I think he is tempting the guy, but he sort of wants to be the girl. Maybe not loves, but he's intrigued by their whole relationship.
He does seem obsessed with them and her, particularly. Well, there's this horse named Firebird, and Brando's character, Pinderton, he's not very good at riding, but one day he just decides to take Firebird.
And this is Liz Taylor's favorite horse.
And Pinderton has taken the spurs to Firebird a little too much, to the point where Firebird's just going on a dead sprint.
I think he literally forces him to do this through this area.
And he eventually gets tossed off of Firebird, and he's rattled and he's torn up, and he's so angry that he begins to whip Firebird. He collapses under his own emotional weight. I think he's feeling guilt over the anger that he displayed to Firebird and of his own inadequacies and what he has to feel like he has to prop up for others to see. It all just comes crashing down, guilt and everything. And that's when Private Williams walks up naked, shows Firebird his penis, and it calms Firebird down, and he walks away.
With Firebird.
So Pinderton is back at their house. They're having a fucking party, and he is like cut up, and Leonora is like, what happened to you? And then she finally gets to, he mentions that he was on Firebird, but he doesn't give a lot of detail.
He tells her Firebird is fine.
Yeah, and that he ran back to the stables. He ran away and ran back to the stables, but she goes and she sees Private Williams nursing cuts on Firebird, and she grabs a horse whip, like the kind that he used.
So Firebird's all right, is he?
Lousy bastard!
bastard! Beating my horse, my firebird!
What did Major Pendleton do?
He stood like a statue.
He beat the horse with a fucking tree branch. It was brutal and very difficult to watch. It was very upsetting. I believe
all Southerners get whipped with a tree branch at some point.
This is just true. I believe because of the way that scene played out, he was wearing those spurs. He got on her horse. He at one point had said to her that he was going to kill her because she took her clothes off and was basically flaunting her sexuality in front of him. Mm-hmm. She had talked earlier in the movie about how she had a friend when she was younger be thrown from a horse and die. He takes her horse to the top of this steep hill and forces the horse to run down it. I think he was trying to kill himself. I really do. I don't think he was just having a fun time riding a horse. It was the night before the party.
This guy does not have a fun time for a half a second at any point.
No, I know. But I'm just saying, it was the night before the party. I don't think he wanted to do it. He hates himself so much. I think he was hoping that he would be injured, but it's that thing where you want to die, but you don't really want to do it. So I'm going to put myself in a reckless situation and hopefully it'll happen, but it won't really be my decision, right? It didn't work. And that's, I think, why he's so fucking distraught.
Julie Harris knows that her husband, Colonel Langdon, is fucking Leonora. And she wants a divorce, but she's going to take Anacleto with her. So she does leave. She has Anacleto pack up and they're both gone. And so a lot of the rest of the movie is Leonora and Pendleton and Langdon sitting around, and Langdon he doesn't say he misses his wife as much as he says he misses Anacleto because he fucking did everything.
She and Anacleto are going to leave, but instead of them going, he calls a doctor and has her committed. So they put her in a assisted living place where Anacleto can live with her. It's like a very fancy hotel. He goes to see her there. And after he leaves, this is a very interesting scene. He leaves, and then we find out by the gay lieutenant or the gay officer coming to Marlon Brando and tells him she's dead.
Did she take her own life?
No, she had a heart attack or something. Okay. So she died in her bed.
And Anacleto just left.
He just fucking ran away. The crazy thing about this scene is this is when Marlon Brando is so obsessed with Private Williams. He's being told that his best friend's wife, who is also in his circle, is dead, and he can't even look at that officer because he's trying to figure out where Williams went, because Williams got out of his line of vision.
Obsessed.
He's so distracted he can't even pay attention.
This is like when the Scooby-Doo movie came out in the early 2000s, and I couldn't sit through it because the chick from Freaks and Geeks who played Velma was so hot, I couldn't concentrate on the rest of the movie. So I couldn't understand the mystery they were getting at. It was just fucking pointless. So I just, I couldn't even tell you what happened in that movie. I'm sure it was the guy who ran the carnival.
Sure, always is.
Yeah.
Yeah, the husband then is very upset because his wife is dead. He's blaming himself because he sent her away. It's weird, though, because he says, I didn't know she was really ill. He didn't know she had a physical illness. He thought it was just in her head. But he's trying to maybe take some of the blame off of himself that he feels, but he is truly, you're right. He talks about Anacleto constantly. He wishes he would come back because he's the tie to him.
Yeah. And he's the guy that did anything. And I think a lot of people maybe lived vicariously through Anacleto as well.
Yeah. There's a great scene. It's after this has all happened, and Liz Taylor and Brian Keith play cards a lot. And he's talking about Anacleto, and she's getting bored of it because he's always talking about him. And he starts talking about how, Anacleto was such a weird little guy.
Pretty awful thing to see a grown-up man dancing around on his toes to some kind of silly music and painting all kind of funny-looking pictures with watercolors. Well, we'd have run him ragged in the army, all right. He sure would have been miserable, but I think anything would be better than all that other mess.
Maybe he wouldn't have been happy, but he would have been normal,
right.
And then Marlon Brando gives this speech. It's the only time he gets close to being honest about how he feels.
At first he talks about how, anything that goes against normality should be punished. And
any fulfillment obtained at the expense of normality is wrong and should not be allowed to bring happiness. In short, it's better because it's morally honorable for the square peg to keep scraping about in a round hole rather than to discover and use the unorthodox one that would fit it.
like he's repeating things that have been repeated to him. And then at the end of the dialogue, he's like,
yeah, that's right, Weldon. Don't you agree with me?
No.
And well, we get to the end of the movie, and this is when I think the filter works. The filter works here because it's like bright gold just splashing into the scene. And he goes to see his wife in his room. No, he sees Williams sneak into the house, right? This is the first time he sees him. He's been sneaking into his house for a long time. Then he walks into the room and he sees Williams, who he's been in love with.
Well, he saw Williams sneaking into the house, and remember, he like turned the light off behind him and like fixed his hair and like cracked his bedroom door open. He thought Williams was coming to him.
And then he walks
and when he realized he didn't.
He walks into Leonora's room and sees Williams sniffing her panties.
It's like a negligee, but yeah.
And then he... And that was the murder that happened at an old fort. He thought he was gonna be able to come for 20 straight minutes. Finally, he doesn't have to look at a statue of David anymore. Williams has come to his house. He's gonna hook up. No, Williams just wants to sniff his bitch wife's undergarments, and maybe just wants to be his wife.
I think so.
He can't handle that. It's too much.
Or
Kills
she
his
just
ass.
represents something completely different from where he is, and he knows he doesn't fit.
And that is Reflections in the Golden Eye from 1967 by John Huston.
Yeah.
Angela seems a little in love with this. We're going to give it 1 through 5 each, combined for best out of 10. Well, how much you give it?
I'm going to give it a 4.5.
I'm going to give it a 3.25.
Okay.
And the PP filter, I would have used it differently. That's just me. But this is what John Huston intended, so we will judge it by his intentions, and we will judge his intentions. I got a 3.25. You're a 4.5. That is a
7.75.
7.75. Take a look at it. It barely makes an A rating. Thanks to Angela. This movie, a bit divisive in its time. It was number 1 when it came out. I feel like if this movie was more popular, it would have been ripe for like parody.
Oh, for sure.
But here we are at 7.75. Reflections in a Golden Eye by John Huston. It is in between the movie Nope by Jordan Peele and Strangers on a Train by Alfred Hitchcock, a movie we talked about earlier this month. So check the show notes for links, other places to find us. Like, subscribe, leave a comment, any corrections, anything like that. What do you think about Reflections in a Golden Eye? Do you like the PP filter? Do you? Yeah, stay gay. This is the last week in which we're gay, and then we're going into war movies, which are gay.
Movies are gay, and so are you.
2 baked Virginia hams, 1 huge turkey, fried chicken, cold sliced pork, and plenty of barbecued spare ribs, and all kinds of little knickknacks like pickled onions and olives and radishes. Oh, and we're going to start off by serving hot rolls and hot little cheese biscuits.